Welcome to DAX Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
So thank you all for joining us on another edition of DAX Machina. In the house tonight is Robbie Jed Rains and Kerry Pocket Doc Davis, my two brothers from various parts of the country, South Crackalacky and Colorado, where he's been getting pelted by the craziest weather of all time. One day it's snow, one day it's rain, and if you get over half inch, it's just waist deep on Doc anyway, so love you guys. And we welcome Carter Buschardt to the show. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Carter is a longtime researcher into the field. He's written several books on the subject, and he's actually been featured on the Animals Planet's Finding Bigfoot. So we're going to let Carter introduce himself, tell us a little bit about his body of work, and then we're going to kind of jump into things. Carter, the floor is yours, my good sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Well, you want me to tell you about my body or my body of work? I couldn't hear you.
Either one, up to you.
Yeah, my body's, it's
not picky.
It's not a pretty sight,
It's on your only Sasquatch fan page.
Yeah. No, I've been researching for about 20 years. I joined BFRO in 2010 or 11, 12, somewhere in there. And quite by accident, I ended up leading expeditions for them shortly after I joined. They got rid of the guy that was doing it. And I led 4 expeditions for them, 3 here in Missouri and 1 in Illinois. And I saw, the guys that brought me in were ape only, flesh and blood, none of this other stuff, and I didn't know any better. I believed differently, but I had no experience on which to base it. It's just like, yeah, just something's, Anyway, so the first expedition I led, one of the groups got separated from us. It was just 2 groups. We stayed put down there near Ellington, and they went around this big circle of about 2 miles. They're going to come back and join us. Well, they got lost. We had bad radio, blah, blah, blah. Couldn't hear them. So we're sitting there in radio silence, hoping to see them. I'm watching on my thermal for heat signatures coming through finally. So I see one. I'm going, oh, thank God they're here. God, we found them. Great, great, great. Well, it wasn't them. It was a Sasquatch. It walked around the corner. It took 1 step, realized we were there, and it just vanished. Like a flash bulb went off, boom, and it was gone. And that was right then and there. I had to decide to take the other fork that went this way with your belief system, because that, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking anything. I had top of the line FLIR equipment. I mean, there was no equipment malfunction, nothing, no mental episode or anything. I just went, oh my God, I just saw that. Crap, it just disappeared, right? And so that changed everything for me. Of course, those guys didn't want to hear it, and they were, telling me all kinds of things. And so, but that's what got me on the path I'm on now with, the Sasquatch, and it got me into investigating mostly habituations. We were talking about this earlier. My books are probably 70% of habituation. These are families or people that are living with them on their property for years or generations, and the stories keep coming in. They're
like
showing
habituation. I mean, people that are living where they are, not people who have been feeding them to draw them in.
No, they're just living on the property, and they're just there. They were there when they got there, and they'll be there long after they're gone. You know how that works. And so, and
when we hear habituation, mostly what we think of is the people that are leaving out food, which can be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, a few of them do it, and they do it very sparingly. I said, there's some trouble with that. I've got a couple out in Washington State that are having fits. They finally got it all figured out. But you don't want to feed them, because then they love that greasy human food, and they want to come back for more, and you don't have any. They're not happy. Well, you just gave me some yesterday. Where's my food today, woman? Come on. What's the deal? Where's my food? They don't understand that part of it. So yeah,
we've seen people feeding. Yeah, we've seen tragic results for people just feeding bears.
yeah. You were cutting out there, DA.
Sorry, I said we've seen tragic results just from people feeding bears.
Oh yeah.
Your CRISPR's cutting you out, DA. That's what he was talking about.
Oh, okay. It's
doing.
I might have to
remember what it was doing a week or so ago, where you talk and only about every third word would come out.
Okay, I'm going to shut that off. We might hear some background noise occasionally, but I'll try shutting that off because it's not helpful sometimes.
So this is me in a nutshell. So for the last 4 years, 2019 to 2000, well now, I wrote my 4 books because COVID and you couldn't go anywhere and do anything. I mean, you could, but you'd be by yourself. So I got a lot of writing done. I'd never written a book before. I just thought, well, I've got all these reports. I've got 100 reports published to BFRO. I've got stacks of stuff. I've got some pretty good stuff here. Maybe I should just write a book. And so I got nothing else to do. Can't go anywhere. Can't go, no one wants to go camping or going out because, COVID is scary and everything. So I just spent 3.5, 4 years writing, so I didn't do it. But, the stuff kept coming in, the reports and the people, and the people I'd known and met, it is just, it reproduced itself over and over and over and over. They said, well, because now they trust you, because when you have witnesses that trust you, you can't beat it. They will tell you anything and everything, and all you got to do is don't tell anybody their name and don't tell them where they live, and you can tell that story all day long, and just call them by another name. And they love it because it's off their chest. The mental anguish, the torture that they're going through is done having to keep it together, and they want to know if they were crazy. And am I crazy for seeing this? Is something wrong with me? No, you're crazy if you don't believe it. Now that you've seen it, I mean, you can't argue with yourself. So you've seen it, and they're a real thing. So, but
so what got you into this? What got you into this field?
Well, my wife and I went to Washington State. I think it was the year they legalized marijuana in Washington State. And that's not why we went. We just wanted to go because I wanted to go out to this, Okay, well, I lied.
I live in Colorado, Carter. I can't say anything.
Yeah, I know. So, but we went there with no predetermined anything. I said, maybe we'll see a Sasquatch. That was the thing, because I was fresh out of my entertainment career and all that stuff, and so I just, idiot. And so we're out there in the woods and walking along, and I had to take a leak, and I go behind a tree. Now, again, this is the year they legalized pot. And I'm looking at this tree, and at the bottom of the tree is this big ammo box, and it's chained to the tree with like big chain, And what it was geocache. That game?
Yeah, my wife and I know cachers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was a geocache. Now, I'm left-handed, and I was going to open it, and I thought, if this is one of those dealers or growers, and this is like a booby trap or something, I'm screwed. So I tried to open it with my right hand, which I'm not very good at, and it didn't blow up. So I opened it up and looked inside, and there was all this stuff in there. You sign your name. I'm Bob from Arizona, and you take something and you put something in and you sign it. Well, I took a card for some guy that was a BFRO researcher in Washington State. So I said, this is supposed to happen because this is what I wanted. I wanted to, learn something about Sasquatch. So that's, I called the guy when I got home, and he arranged for me to go on an expedition here in Missouri, and I was hooked. That was 2010 or 11, 12, somewhere in there. And I said, how do I become a researcher? And within a year, I met Matt, and he was getting rid of the guy that was doing them down here, and hired me, and there it was. So, so that's how I got started, and then, going on a couple of expeditions, make sure you can do it and you're smart and you know how to write and, that's a Sasquatch and that's a pear tree. You know what you're looking at, and all that kind of stuff. So, that was it. Then I just got going. And I really like the reports. I really enjoyed meeting those people or talking to all these people. They had all these stories. I didn't have to go anywhere. I was just calling them up. Well, we saw it. You know how it is, and they come to you. After a while, they come to you. So that's how I got going. And my report, I've had 100 published to BFR. There was others that weren't. But that's a pretty good track record right there. I mean, I had a lot, and so I got 4 books worth of material, 3 books really, and then the 4th one was just more and more people kept calling. So that's how I got going, and it's just nonstop. It's been a fantastic run. I really like the expeditions and stuff, and getting down there in the Current River and all the other places down there. So, meeting the people and with the paranormal and the quantum stuff that they're going through and all this stuff, and they have someone to talk to. That's the thing. That's why I do it, because I want them to tell me. I put it in a book. I tell everybody else. Somebody reads that and they go, "Oh, that happened to Uncle Reber. Let's call this guy and talk to him." So somebody calls me, and you know how it is. And that's how your books come to pass that way. I'm sure. I mean, to some degree, they're just calling me and regurgitating all this incredible stuff. They're living with them. The Sasquatch come out from behind the tree while they go to get their mail, and they're showing them the newborn. Stuff like that. You just go, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, you can, but I don't. They're just telling me. And I've been to probably half of my properties, everything except Washington. I mean, I've been and met these people and sat and broke bread with them and sat on the porch and talked to Squatches, had them call me back in my exact voice. I mean, it's just crazy. And they just do this. This is like, on Saturday night, we like to sit around, we get a case of beer, we put it in the cooler, and we sit down there and sit on the porch, look at the thermal. They throw rocks and twigs at us, we throw them back, and then they start talking and yakking. I mean, who does that? That's what they do. You'd be wasting their time watching TV, but they're sitting out having fun with the Sasquatch in the juveniles. That's one family in particular. So it's just a fascinating study.
Yeah. So where all have you researched?
Well, Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, Texas. I'm from Texas originally, and so some of Oklahoma. So those are the 4 areas I worked for BFR. Those are the 4 areas I took reports for and just did that. So I've been to all 4 states and done, gone out and done my thing, And I'm having more luck here in Missouri, But
we've had a lot of contact here in Missouri as well.
Missouri is definitely a hotbed for it, brother. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. So especially if you get down there, Mark Twain. But I mean, here, that footprint behind me, that handprint right there, that one, got that here in Missouri. That thing's 12 inches from the base of my palm up to the tip of the finger. 12 inches. There's dermal ridges all over. And I got that verified in my own private way, but it's verified. You can see the dermal ridges on it. It's in the book. But that was taken here. The place is called Monkey Mountain. I wonder why they call it Monkey Mountain.
That's something we've talked about quite a bit, is how on all these old maps, like old plat maps and stuff, how you can find places like, Booger Creek or Monkey Mountain, and, make you wonder how they got those names, Devil's Elbow.
Yeah, Devil's Gulch, and all that. Yeah. Well, that comes from way back, before hoaxing and stuff, and people said what they saw, and they saw it, and they weren't joking, and so they put a name on it, So, but yeah, Missouri is just very, productive, and I've had really good luck with the expedition. The one in Illinois, that was a very, very spooky time, but it was very monumental for me, because this is a really cool story. like I said, okay, there was 4 people that went on this expedition, and my partner who lives in Illinois, Harold Benny, I don't know if anybody knows him. He used to be with BFRO. He was there as well. So there were 6 of us, you know. So we went to this area. I was telling you all this before. We went to this area that I asked around at the local breakfast joint in the morning. And they told me, well, this is an area you don't want to go. It's the Trail of Tears. Nobody and their mother would ever go there after dark, period. The biggest, baddest macho guy wouldn't go near it at night. And it's because, you know, it's the Trail of Tears. And I think about, there's a plaque out there. It's like 94 Native Americans froze to death or drowned waiting to get to the Mississippi River, which is just down the road, but they froze and ran out of supplies and couldn't get there. And so a lot of them were buried in this area that I had chosen to do my expedition at. Well, I come to find out that 10 years before I got there, a big flood had come through and washed a lot of the graves away. And they were all wrapped in red blankets. Whatever tribe they all used red blankets. So every now and then you see some red shreds of blankets still sitting around, laying around, hanging from trees and stuff, you know. So they reburied most everybody. But there's just a lot of creepy weirdness going on. When you get there, you just go, I like it, but I'm not sure I do, but it's pretty cool. It's creepy. So, but we went, and you go down this long ravine. It's about 100 yards, and it's got 20 to 30 foot banks on each side. It goes downhill, and we heard Sasquatch on either side. They were paralleling us. They were following us. Occasionally, they throw a stick or a twig or do something. But we couldn't get them to like react other than what they were doing. They were controlling the narrative there. They were doing it on their own way. We couldn't get them to, you know, start talking or, you know, whooping or doing anything. We did all the clacking and stuff. But anyway, but we had a lot of activity. We got about 6 or 7 really nice footprints. And so the night, I think this was a Saturday night, we were done and said, you know what, I'm going to leave a camera here at this log, because there was a log that kind of stopped you from going. So I took my camera and I left it there and said, I'm going to go back and go to camp. And then when I come back in the morning on the way back to Kansas City, I'll stop here and get my camera. It's on the way. We didn't camp at that spot. We camped somewhere else. So I go back the next morning, and where my camera is, there's 6 rocks. I'm going to get a book. Hang on. See the 5 rocks on the left?
Mm-hmm.
Those weren't there the night before. And you see the over here, where is it? This thing's camera back. Okay, over here is Harold. There's a short, round, fat rock right there. Harold's a short, round guy. And so Harold, who's my partner there, he couldn't make the hike down there. He's had a couple of strokes and cancer. He's an older guy. And so he stayed in his truck and monitored. So I went back to get my camera. My camera is at the lower end of the other end of the log. That pointy rock is me. The 4 rocks behind it are the 4 people who went on that expedition. The solo rock all by itself at the other end, that's Harold, who was there, but he wasn't there. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, what is this? This wasn't here yesterday. And I suddenly just went, oh my God, they're communicating. They're letting us know that they were paying attention. You know, and I'm freaking out. You know, sometimes when I tell this, I get all teary-eyed because it was just like one of those aha, oh my God moments. I said, they were counting us out. There's our 5 people, and there's Harold at the other end who was there but wasn't there. So I called my wife. I was all excited. I said, I'll be home here about 5 hours. I'm driving back. I told her what was going on. And she said, well, what time was that? I said, well, I don't know. We left about 5:30 or 6 because it was getting dark. And this would be October. And it was getting a little nippy. But we went back to camp. And so she said, well, at 8 o'clock, 8:30 last night, before I went to bed, a blue orb flies into the bedroom, flies around twice, goes into the bathroom, disappears. And if that's not them telling me, I know where you live. Cool. That's what it was. They just, I feel it in my heart and soul that they were communicating, and my wife was going, how do they do this? Trust me, I don't believe in coincidences in this particular business, and so that was a message, clear and simple. You may or may not agree, but that's what it was.
I've never seen an orb, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I've seen several orbs. I've got people that, that my habituation folks, they see orbs right before or right after a Sasquatch event, or they will see a Sasquatch before or after an orb event. They'll see orbs, then suddenly they'll see one a few seconds later. But it was just like they made a connection. They let me know. They knew who I was, what I was doing, and why I was there. They knew where I lived. I was 325 miles away, and they're doing that. There's nobody out at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the height of COVID. There's nobody out, and nobody went to that area anyway. It's like, if you go there, you might die, as far as the town folk are concerned. So that was them telling me, we know who you are, and we saw you, and we didn't communicate. I'm paraphrasing it. I just think, well, we didn't communicate, but this is what we did. We did that instead. So, and that's after I'd already seen the one disappear here in Missouri, down there in Allington. So it's like, I can't turn my head and go, well, that just didn't happen, or that didn't make sense. That couldn't be what that was. I can't do that. Logical mind is just going, I don't understand that. If I don't understand it, it's got to be something it's not like meat and potatoes. It's something esoteric, and that's what they did, and it just set everything on fire for me, and then all these other people started calling me with all these events. Some of the photos I sent you, maybe we can look at it or not, but it's like, it's pouring now. It's like, I couldn't stop it. It just kept coming, all the data and the information and the reports. And so I kept writing all this stuff, and it just kept coming. And then they call, I forgot to tell you, and so it's mind boggling. I don't know what your belief system is on that paranormal quantum type stuff, but it's, it woke me up.
I'm going to bring up a couple of those pictures for you and let you talk about them a little bit.
Okay, this is my very first Dogman sighting. This is here in Missouri. The kid, I say kid, he's in mid-20s. He takes care of most of the growing operations. They have all these Quonset hut type greenhouses. They stretch the heavy duty plastic over these, the curved poles, and it's about 35, 40 foot long and about 20 foot wide. And they run propane in their heaters so they can grow year round. Anyway, so he's in there checking the plants and doing stuff. And it's just like 3:30 in the afternoon. And he sent me this 2 weeks ago. He sees a Dogman with, as he said, the back ashward legs, black, ears standing straight up, and it is 6 to 8 foot. and it's only thing between him and the Dogman is that thin sheet of plastic. And you see those 5 holes up there. It got its fingers kind of like this, and it was like poking at it, like it had never seen it. He told me, he says, it acted like he'd never seen it. He was just like playing with it, like he was, then suddenly it kind of did that, and it stuck his claws in there. That's his claws. That's the 5 claws. And then there's four other ones down here. But he just stood there, and they were looking at each other. And then it turned around and walked off. They have a heavy habituation thing going on at their place. I mean, but it's broad daylight, 3:30. Now, these people are also devout Christians. And so not only do I believe them because I've been there, I've met them, I've been to their place 3 times. I mean, I know them, and they just wouldn't BS. They're just not the types. She's former law enforcement. She's a former sheriff. And so they're just as right as rain, And I've met the uncle of this family. He just passed away. He had 2 Class A sightings in Ellington, and he lived in Ellington for a while. He was a volunteer preacher replacement. He would go to churches that didn't have a preacher, and he would be there until they found one to be permanent. Then he would go somewhere else. That's what he did for a living. And so he was a very devout, very wonderful man. And I've met 9 members of the family. The first time I went down there and met everybody, people pulling out, there's about 12 people there. They're pulling out phones, flip phones, all kind of, oh, look at this. Look. They all had pictures and stick structure. They all had everything. They were so excited to get it out of their system and be able to talk about it, But it was just crazy. And so this is how, this whole family is enveloped in this habituation where these Sasquatch are coming to and from the property, helping themselves to vegetables and stuff. And they've had some knockdown dragouts about that stuff. So, but I took a couple of Sasquatch reports about 2 years ago, and they saw Dogman also, but this is the first one that was just like a Dogman all by itself, broad daylight, 3:30 in the afternoon. And he said, I couldn't even reach her. I was afraid to reach for my phone. I had my phone. I couldn't do it, And I sent you that other picture where it took its claw and ran it down the slice.
It's not coming up in order. Hold on, I'll have to find it.
Okay, well, that's all right. The other one, you got to find it?
Yeah. There we go.
So it just, once it realized it was really light material, it just took its claw, did that. I mean, it was just playing with it like, oh, this is interesting. This is human material. I've never seen this. I think I'll poke a hole in it. Oh, I can tear it. I can kill it, whatever it was doing. But these people have all kinds of stuff going on at their property, and we've gotten into some burial conversations where the Sasquatch don't like them putting flowers and marking graves when animals pass away. So they, it's just a fact. It's day after day. There's something going on there. This is the kid who went in there one night. They'd been stealing food, and they thought it was neighbors because there was food disappearing out of their grow houses. So they got tired of it. Yeah, this is the grow house, and this is, see that handprint up there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the other face, the face that I sent, when it pressed its face up to the plastic, what they did was stand up and put their face up, and they're looking for the humans so they can make their getaway. And the one picture I sent you of that face on the sweaty plastic, That one there. That's just, to me, that's just freaking awesome. He's on the inside of the greenhouse, pressing his face to the plastic to see if he can get his ass out of the greenhouse without getting caught. And he took the picture. That print was up there. That face print was there for 20, 30 minutes. He took the picture right after. But the thing is, one night around 11 o'clock, 11:30, the alarm goes off, the lights go on and light up the area, and that means there's somebody in the greenhouse. So he's going, okay, I'm going to go find out who it is. It better not be my neighbors. I'm all pissed. And he's going out there, and all he has is his flashlight. He goes out there, and he opens the door, and this juvenile Sasquatch runs by him. He screams, runs by him, and he brushes up against him. There are two guys going through that one door at the same time. And he's just standing there like, it goes right by him. He touched me. Oh my God. He's just freaking out. It's kind of funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but, on his way to the greenhouse, he heard this screaming from one side of the woods. As he got a little closer, he's screaming from the other side of the woods. When he got to the greenhouse, he heard the screaming coming from inside. And that's the juvenile freaking out because he's busted, And the things that they were eating, most of were strawberries and rutabagas. Those are the two things that they were eating that they really seemed to like. And you could see where they would lay down and take a nap and fall asleep at night. You could see the body, the imprint of this massive 6, 7, 8 foot body in the grass that was growing up from before. I mean, it's, I've seen it. It's just like, oh my God, but they feel right at home there. They watch them, they watch them work in the yard, I told them one of their cats died. I said, don't put any flowers or mark the grave because they'll probably take it apart. And I've got a picture of it in the book. They did bring some radish tops, the green tops to the radishes. They pull them off of the plants that were in the greenhouse, and they appeared on the grave the next day. So they came in, they know life and death and how we celebrate it and mourn it. And they put the green radish tops on the grave. It's in the book. And this was a mother cat who gave birth to a bunch of kittens, and she didn't take it well, and she died. I saw the cat. All this happened about 2 weeks after I left. She died not long after I left, and then they buried her and all that. But I mean, they understand. I've got another property where they understood the death and the concept. Did I send you that cross? That cross?
Yeah, I'll bring that one up. Just a second.
That's good. "75 yards to the left of that picture is a mostly abandoned Civil War era cemetery. Most of the graves are like late 1700s to mid 1800s. And there's a cross. I mean, it's a cross. It's, again, they understand the concept. Now, that was about 11 feet in the air. It's about 11 feet across. It did not fall that way. It was placed because it's burned on the right end of it. You can see it was burned, so it was on the ground at some time. And it's resting on two twigs that are about the size of your middle finger, but thicker and fatter, enough to hold that. It's just sitting there. And it was placed. And this is when I went to investigate that cop that called in a report because he saw one that was watching him fish, him and his uncle. It was down in middle Missouri. I might, if I'm lucky, think of the name before we're done here. But it's another you know, it's symbolic. They understand. I don't know if you've gotten any reports, but I get a lot of reports of people seeing them watching funerals.
I've never had one of them watching a funeral, but I've had numerous reports of sightings in and around cemeteries.
Yeah, they're fascinated because they understand the concept of death. And here's another one that'll take that thing home, is that the couple I was telling you about, where I sat on the front porch and we're throwing sticks and twigs back and forth and talking to the Sasquatch and having games and everything. Their mother, her mother, the wife who lives there, her mother lived on a trailer there, and she passed away. Well, she had a dog that she used to walk all the time. Well, one time when she was walking this dog, it was fat, old, it could barely walk, couldn't get around. It got cornered by 3 or 4 wild dogs. There's a pack of wild dogs out in the country all the time. You know, they're everywhere, you know, and, especially raiding the trash cans and stuff. There's a pack of wild dogs, and they surrounded the dog. They were after the dog, and they were going to take it out. All of a sudden, this scream comes out of the woods, echoing, bouncing off everybody's chest. Those dogs hauled ass, and they were never seen again. They never came back. And so the Sasquatch loved the old lady. They loved her attention to the dog, and they didn't want anything to happen because they probably watched her walk that dog dozens of times. So the dog died a few months later, and they buried it. They got, I think, 18 carnations in a pot, you know, the bigger pots, like about the size of the coffee cup, you know, and they buried it, and they surrounded it with the carnations all planted. She gets up the next morning, all the flowers have been taken out of the ground. They're laid right next to the hole, no damage, no nothing. And they called me freaking out. I said, well, I told you they don't mark their graves. So you marked your grave. They don't want anybody to steal your dog, because they know that somehow that's what us humans will do. Someone will discover them. Well, they don't mark their graves. You probably walk by 1,000 of them and don't even know they're buried there. You know, if they even die in this area, you know, I mean, they could move a 2-ton boulder by a couple of them and throw the body in there and roll it back over. You don't know what's under there. It doesn't look like it's ever moved. So you don't know where they bury them and how they bury them, what they do, but they did that. And that's another. So there's 3 examples. This is all really 2 from Habituation and 1 from the cemetery there. But this is a symbolic thing that no one understand, and they probably have the same thing they feel when one of their people passes. It's the same thing. We grieve. We probably remember things we did together and all that. I mean, we have throwing human concepts on an animal, but it's consistent, and I can pull up another couple of stories like that. So if that keeps going on, that's a thing. It's like really happening. It's not an imagination. It's not like I'm just making this up. I know that's what it is, so I feel it. No, these couples, families that don't know each other, telling the same story about death. And Sasquatch's reaction to it are very similar to it. So that's a thing. It's a real thing. You can't. I mean, you can ignore it if you want, if you don't want to recognize it, because if you just think they're a dumb ape, well, why would they have a concept of death? I mean, they might be sad like a dog would be sad if its owner died.
Well, even chimps have a concept of death. There are documented cases of female chimps that had an infant die, and they'd carry the corpse around mourning for months.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon for animals in the animal kingdom to have a concept of death.
Yeah.
Coco was that way about her kitten that got run over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cows. I've seen cows do it on when I was growing up.
Yeah.
A calf had died.
Look at all the videos we've seen of dogs laying on their owners' graves and and whining.
Yeah. They do have that sense of loss, I believe.
Yeah. But here's the thing: those animals, everybody on the planet agrees they exist. Sasquatch, they don't exist, but they're still exhibiting the same things. So which is wrong? Which is not true?
Well, I think a lot of the behaviors that we see in Sasquatch, we need to look no further than the animal kingdom to see explanations.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Pretty good point. Well said. I like that. So I put that together with, birth, death. I've had a couple of couples that have had a newborn shown to them. The same family that I was talking about, they have about a half-mile walk or drive up to get their mail. They own 300 acres, out in the middle of nowhere. And so what he used to do, the husband, would walk the old dog, not that dog, but their dog. And he would walk him, get his exercise. He'd walk up half a mile in the morning, early, get the mail, come back. And that's the dog's exercise for the day. He goes back in the pen. Well, on several occasions, the Sasquatch will peek behind a tree and just let him see them. And they're just watching him. They're not but they're not trying to hide. They're not like, whoop. They're just like, what are you doing? What's in that box? That is so weird. Human, what are you doing? And they're just curious. But then they showed a newborn. I mean, it was fresh out of the oven, and they've shown. I have pictures. Of course, they would be blob squatches in today's world, but you can see the sunrise coming up. There's the parent with the sun coming up behind it, so it's backlit. You don't see any features. You just see this humanoid silhouette. Then about 10 yards in front of it is a little juvenile. Same pose. It's small. It's just probably the baby they were shown a couple years ago. They are sharing their family. I mean, who does that? This is it's crazy stuff, but it's awesome. If I showed you this picture, you go, that's ain't nothing there. It's nothing. I get it, but you can see it if you do the works with the camera and the contrast.
Well,
and all that.
we've had barn cats that would do that. That would come get you and take you to see, get you to follow them to see their litter. I mean, that's a very, very mammalian behavior.
Yeah. So here we have it again. But everybody agrees a kitten exists, but not a Sasquatch. Well, nope. What they do? You just
one thing we've discussed on a number of occasions is, Robbie and I both. Well, Robbie's been in law enforcement longer than I have. I'm retired now, but I did almost 20 years, and we both can give you prime examples of people who went to prison for a very long time on eyewitness testimony. But when it comes to Bigfoot, eyewitness testimony is suddenly no good.
Mm-hmm. Well, because they don't exist. So you must be smoking or drinking or tripping on acid.
I think we've, even if with just like eDNA and anecdotal evidence and tracks and, track morphology as I talked about by Dr. Meldrum, I think there is more than enough circumstantial evidence to argue for the case of the creature. I mean, we're finding big stuff all the time. Look was only in 1999 they discovered the billy ape, and it's that is another species of great ape that they didn't know existed.
Yeah. Oh, you're hearing it every now and then. And the fossils for the prehistoric man, it's getting changed every day. So, the problem, as I'm preaching to the choir here, but, science, government, religion, social media, they don't want you to believe. They're going to carry the torch of a lie that's been told forever.
Exactly. Well, have you read the book Them and Us by Danny Vendramini?
Mm-mm.
It's a fantastic book. He did a forensic reconstruction of a Neanderthal. His name is Danny Vendramini. 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 He's from Australia.
The name of the book.
Yes, Them and Us.
Yeah.
And he did a forensic reconstruction of a Sasquatch skull. And let me bring up the image, because it's, when you look at it, it's very much what we describe as a modern Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
Let me here we go.
You look like you're watching a rabbit race, DA.
I've got multiple tabs going.
Here
Here we go. Share the screen. That was a forensic reconstruction that they did of what they believed a Neanderthal actually looked like.
Nice. Well, they're making it more primitive than the most of the Neanderthals we've seen. That looks more.
Well, most of the reconstructions of Neanderthals that we've seen thus far were done by like the old British Museum, and they had a vested interest in making us think they were just another type of human when they weren't. I mean, there's a reason the uncanny valley exists, why humans who've evolved in far different places all across the globe all have the same fear of something that looks almost like us in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a very real reason why we have the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
We've got a whole rash of people subscribed to the channel. Oh, Trisha Arnold gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Trisha. That is awesome. Congratulations to everybody that won one.
You're whooping some butt tonight.
Wow.
Awesome. Thank you, ma'am.
But the whole thing with the, the government, religion, and science, and all that, just you can't fight that battle. It's. I really am happy that the UAP thing and all that is coming, and we're going to have a whole big dump of knowledge of things we thought, dreamed, suspected.
I think the government has been doing soft disclosures for a while. For example, the state of Ohio, the Department of Conservation from Ohio, released a 5-part video of what to do if you encounter the grass man. And I thought it was going to be tongue-in-cheek when I first heard about it, but it was actually very legitimate videos on what to do. And the weird thing is those videos have now disappeared.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Just like
somebody made them take them down.
Well, just like the giants of Lovelock have disappeared and probably in the Smithsonian.
Well, we know for a fact that hundreds, if not thousands, of giant skeletons have been unearthed over the last 200 years, and every time the Smithsonian gets involved, they just vanish.
Yeah. Another government agency, So yeah, they're one step. The problem is technology and people's knowing that they're just BSing us. It's coming to an end. You can just feel it, because lying and BSing us, you're stealing our money and you're taking our taxes, and your UFOs don't exist, and Sasquatch don't exist, and ghosts don't exist, and Dogman, none of that's real. It's all just, well, you've been told that for 18 to 22 years of your first 18 to 22 years of your life. You've been told that none of this is real. You've been told how to see and view the world by the government and the education system and all of that. So you've got to undo 18 years to 22 years if you go to college of baloney blowing in your nostrils, and you're like, well, they can't be like, because they're. So then you got to start all over, And so right place, right time. I'm glad I saw what I did when I did, and I had an open mind. It's just I can't discount that. I just saw that thing disappear. I can't discount that. I saw it. I'm sober. I know what I'm doing. I'm not insane. Nothing. I saw that. I may not be able to explain it, but I saw it. And I wasn't recording that night. I'd kill myself. I was trying to save my battery. How many times have you said that? I was just trying to save my battery. But I was just scouting, and so I wish I had that, but woulda, coulda, shoulda, whatever,
Yeah, I hear you. There are a number of times I really wish we'd have been recording and we weren't.
Yeah.
Like in Moon Valley that night. I wish we'd have been able to record that.
Me too, man. Me too.
But, and now with the Dogman report that this kid called in, broad daylight, saw it, 10 feet away. After another thing to add to the mystery, what are they? Why are they here? He did mention that he hasn't seen the Sasquatch around the farm near as much since he saw that dog. could just be a product of timing, you know, because they're not looking for them because they see them all the time. So they don't even think, you know, I wonder where the juvenile is today. Where's the girl? Where's the mother? You know, they don't look because they know they're going to see him eventually. So that's just the weird thing with habituation people. They don't, it's such a real and everyday thing to them. They don't even talk about it. They don't even think about it, you know, unless you bring it up and they go, oh yeah, no, I forgot about that. Yeah. We saw the baby last week. They just, it's a part of their everyday life. And most people cannot imagine that I'm going to go take out the trash. I'm going to go get the mail. I'm going to wave to the 8-foot tall, 1,000-pound Sasquatch over there who is not going to eat me or kill me. He just wants to watch me live my life. You know. Go ahead.
Just a guy who yaps had a question for you, Carter. He said, have you ever received a peculiar response from mimicking an owl or wolf call?
Yeah. I have a good story for that.
So have we.
Yeah. You go first. I'll tell you mine.
Tell him, BA, you was there.
We when we were down in Moon Valley, we started out with just doing, well, I do what I call a tongue pop. And I think that's a lot of what people refer to as wood knocks. It's a noise. And I did that, and we kind of got a little bit of response, but not much. But then, who was it did the whoop? Was that Robbie?
Yeah, I did a whoop first.
Robbie did a whoop, and we didn't really get much of a response. Then Doc did a couple of owl calls, which we got replied. And then Robbie did a wolf howl.
We didn't get a reply. We didn't get a reply to his owl calls at first.
That's true. It wasn't right at first. And Robbie did a wolf howl, and we got an owl call in response. And right after that, the activity ramped up, and we got surrounded.
Yeah, and the owl call was an exact imitation of the one that I sent out.
And it wasn't an owl from our area. Doc did that on purpose.
Yeah. Well, I was in. I think this was in Iowa. And I was leading a group. It was an expedition. I may have been a BFRO, may have been a private one. I'm not sure. But I was leading a group of about 5 or 6 people. And there was several groups out all over the woods. And we got into this one little area. And you hear the whoo, 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 whoo. Then you hear the call back, the return. Then you hear one that's like 5 times as loud. Whoo, 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 whoo. It starts doing the call, and it stops for a couple of seconds, and it starts over, does the call all over again. Like he had to start over and stop because it was coughing and choking. We were all dying laughing. It was so funny.
It needs to switch to filters instead of Lucky Strike.
Yeah, it was hilarious because he stopped and didn't miss a beat and went right back to it. And we were all laughing, But no, I've heard them, mimic a lot of stuff. Car engines, owls, deer call, rabbits. They mimic a lot of stuff.
You ever heard a crying baby from the woods?
I have not.
That's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
Now would that be a Sasquatch baby crying, or would that be something else?
I've often wondered whether it was a Bigfoot baby or an attempt to lure you away from the campsite.
Yeah, those are the only 2 things that come to mind because a lot of people talk about that and they're calling you it's the pale whites, or it's something, something the Slender Man or something calling you to get you to go check, and they'll steal your soul or eat you or kill you or whatever. So, yeah. No, that owl story is the only one, and the one that the Sasquatch that mimicked me when I did my call, it called me back in the exact same voice, my voice. I've got so many witnesses that have, the women are at home, primarily the women are home working during the day, just, taking care of the house, husband's away at work. And I have 2 different women who've both told me the same thing. They're out there working and they hear, Sydney, Cindy, where you at? Well, it's in her husband's voice. It's calling her. She's out working. Well, he's supposed to be at work. So she calls him up. What, are you at work? Where you at? Yeah, I'm at work. What do you want? What's going on? Oh, my God. But it comes to find out, I just found this out last year, she's been communicating with a female Sasquatch, a juvenile. And this is the one that's been mimicking her hubby's voice. And she'll come out and start looking for him. I've got a lady in Washington, it's the same thing. She hears, or he hears her name, her voice calling him. She will hear his voice, and it's the exact voice. Nothing, I mean, there's not even a skip of a beat. It's like, what are you doing? I thought you went to the store. Well, I thought you were at work. I thought you were at the Marine,
Man, and that's kind of skinwalkerish too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, they don't see what's doing it. They assume, because what they're seeing, for the most part, 99% is Sasquatch. They have them on their property too. They see them all the time. So yeah, you don't know what it is, but I mean, that's the typical lure,
We used to have weird crap like that down in Moon Valley all the time when I was a kid camping. I remember one time as a teenager, I was fishing off by myself. There was like 6 of us that went camping, but I was farther down the river from everybody else. And I was fishing, and I was sitting there whistling the Andy Griffith theme. That, I was just sitting there whistling that as I fished. And later that night, I heard that exact song from across the river from where we were camping. So I don't know if it was a person or what, but it freaked us out.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, because, cryptids are all encompassing, but we don't know what else is out there. You have to at least have an open mind to think, well, if that wasn't a sense, what could it be? But my people are all hearing that same type of interaction where it's calling out as though you're the spouse, and you go out there and look for your husband or your wife, and you wonder where they're at and how come they're calling you, and it's not them. So, I mean, but she comes, the one lady in St. Clair, Missouri, a little south of St. Louis there, she's in communication with this young female Sasquatch, and she watches her garden. Now, when they first moved out to this house, the Sasquatch came over there, and they killed their peacocks. They had 2 peacocks. They were both devoured. They just ripped them open, and they ate all the intestines, all the high protein stuff. The heart, lungs, intestines, all that stuff. But they've got a truce kind of worked out. But they see them all the time. They sit on the deck, and that's what they do. Have a couple of beers, a couple of cigarettes, and sit there and talk to them, watch them, listen to them. They walk around the house. There's a big natural spring that's right in front of their house, and it's next to the street that runs. It's a spring-fed thing. And she hears them often drinking, just gulping water. You're hearing these hands just splashing it up. And they've seen them do that, but they know that's what they're doing. So they're just experiencing the day-to-day life, of these beings, and it's bizarre. I've got a story for everything. It's just crazy. Well, it's not crazy, it's real.
Yeah.
I don't want to say crazy, but they the Dogman thing I was telling about with the plastic and everything. There is a big silver mine near my people's farm, and there's a big hog farm out there, and they have found stacks and stacks and stacks of baby pigs' bones in these caves that are out there by the mines. They've been stacked up, and they're missing pigs from the pig farm. And what stacks bones?
Yeah, wolves and coyotes ain't going to do that. Neither are bears.
And they are tabbing it with the Dogman or the Sasquatch, But Dogman, they are seeing them, and they're hearing other people talking about seeing them in an area where they haven't been seen before, or no one is talking about it until now. Flip a coin on that one, but what stacks bones? What steals pigs and it just rips them apart and eats them? And you got to start doing the math. And some of this takes opposable thumbs. It's not a wild animal that's just ripping them, just leave them there and let the body lie wherever it falls and carry it kind of. No, it's a meticulous thing. So 10 years from now, hopefully we're all still here and we can enjoy the fact that they've admitted and found a sample and, okay, we're sorry, but, I think they know exactly what's going on with, Sasquatch, the government, the Dogman. I think they know exactly what all that is.
I think they've known about it for a very long time.
Yeah. It could go back hundreds of years.
I think it goes back at least to Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, because he saw one or reported something.
Mm-hmm. He wrote about a Bigfoot encounter in his book, The Wilderness Hunter, and he's also part of why we have the national park system we have today.
Yeah, and was it Davy Crockett or Daniel Boone that also saw one?
I believe it was Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone also allegedly killed an Ozarks howler.
Yeah, and so back then, when things were normal, we had no internet and there's no hoaxing. You drew on a cave wall what you saw. You carved it in a tree. You had to memorialize it somehow. So all those alien-looking things and the big gorilla things that all the Native Americans have done so beautifully, and some of their artwork's just incredible. You look at that and go, they're drawing what they saw, what they heard. They're not drawing like, let me make this up. Let's give him 14 eyes. It's 2 eyes. It's a big thing. It's got a helmet. It's hair. That's the truth. That's how the world is. We're the ones that are making crap up now. Right. They were just saying the world as they saw it and memorializing it the best way they could. The true and honest way. Simple. We come along and screw it all up. And the government jumps in and really make a mess of it,
Absolutely.
And I've got a guy in this book up in Canada. Oh my God, the stuff that he's told and been through. I mean, he's lost a marriage and a girlfriend over Sasquatch just appearing and disappearing in front of people. And I was reading part of his story today, and God, where did he call me? He was on what's the other podcast that was on for a long time? I can't even think of it now. But he called me and wanted to talk to me because the guy that he was interviewing with didn't believe what he was telling me. I said, well, talk to me, and the stuff, I mean, they're just, he's up in BC, British Columbia. Those things are big and giant and nasty. He's seen all kinds, trees uprooted and flying up into the sky and all kinds of bizarre stuff out there. And he doesn't do drugs or anything like that. He's just, he's made friends, him and his father. His father was selling metal buildings to the Native Americans, the indigenous people of Canada, before anybody. And so my witness would go with him, and they made friends with all these indigenous folks, and they told them all their stories and what this and that and what all this other stuff was about. And so they had an understanding of what it was. Now, they trusted his father so much, they let their children go home to civilization to experience electricity and running water. I mean, this is, they were just coming out of the, Stone Age, so to speak. This is like in the 50s, 60s. Yeah. And so they would let him take the kids home. They trusted him that much. And then he'd bring them back and they would tell them all wonderful stories about stuff. But they educated them on the the Sasquatch, what they call them up there. But some of the stories of this thing are just mind-boggling. You know, guys, seeing 20 or 30 of them, and they all run for the hills when they pull into this area to start planting trees in the forest. This Canada is notoriously bad about replenishing their forests. So, but I mean, they've seen 20 or 30 of them. They all hit the hill, running for the hills. Because what's this van full of humans doing? There's not supposed to be anybody up there. What the hell? So you're hearing all these stories, and it's like, if you're not making this stuff up, man, I want to move in with you. I want to live there. I'm going to sell my house and move to Canada. I'm going to experience it. But the stuff he was telling me, and he's damaged from it. He's a loner. He was isolated because he's lost all the people that meant anything to him. His mother's gone now, and he lost his wife. She left him over these creatures coming in and out of the wall. And then this other girlfriend he met, they would just pop up in between him and this girl he's talking to. Right there, just pop up and then gone. Or they'd stomp on the ground right in front of them, and there's nobody there. It's just bizarre stuff. But you gotta have an open mind at some point and believe this stuff, And he's as sincere as he could be. He cried many times while he was talking, telling me these stories, and just going, I don't think you'd be faking this if you're bawling your eyes out, because you're terrified at the memory of some of this stuff, It's a zap. He got zapped once. The Sasquatch stuck his hand through the glass in his window. They were dancing. Him and this other female Sasquatch were dancing on the deck in his cabin in the middle of nowhere. They're dancing and doing all this stuff, and it was but he didn't want to watch it anymore, and the Sasquatch got mad and sent him a mental message, and he put his hand through the glass, hit David right between the eyes, and he fell down, and he's looking at his dead body while he's still standing up. He's looking down at his body, and he's still standing up. How does that happen? And he's going, and the female came over and did a couple of moves and stuff like this, and suddenly he got back up, and him watching himself became him standing up. This stuff is just so bizarre, and it's all paranormal and quantum, and it defies logic, and it's just like, I got to decide whether this guy's yanking my chain or not, And he's as sincere as he could be. I mean, he's just telling me this. I don't care if you don't believe me. He's telling me, he's had fish gifted in his house. Find a live fish in his house. Bugs. What's the butterflies up there? Really certain kind of a big, beautiful butterfly they have up there. But they find them in his house, and there's no way for them to get in there. It's a cabin, is what it is. But I mean, just bizarre stuff. So all across America, people are telling the same bizarre stories, and at some point you just got to go, these people aren't nuts. The people that are nuts are the ones that aren't paying attention and discounting it, not even giving it the time of day. There's got to be something to all of that. It's just not nothing. It's not a bunch of people sitting around eating gummies and going, "Oh, let me freak this podcast guy out." That's just not happening. I wouldn't waste a gummy on that. I wouldn't waste a gummy on me. I'd find something else better to do with it. But honestly, you talk about the things you hear and the things you used to discount, and now it's like common knowledge, and it's also more and more people are talking about it because more and more people are coming out and telling you this stuff, and this is happening to me. I don't care what you think. Make fun of me if you want, but I'm going to tell you. And so what do you do with that? At some point, you got to go this way or that way on the road, and I took the road less traveled. It just makes sense, and it just keeps happening. I've got a family in Arkansas that are listening to 3 Sasquatch having a conversation at night. gibberish. What's this gibberish? What do they mean? I don't know what they mean, but it's Chinaman chatter. You know, I turned them on to Ron Moorhead stuff, you know, and they were listening and going, that's it. That's it. That is it. That's what we're hearing. Oh my God. This is real. Yeah, it's real stuff. You're hearing it. Of course it's real. It's not somebody messing with you. Yeah. You know, well, that's what they're hearing. You know, and then somebody's responding back to them, and then somebody's talking to that guy, and they're having a conversation. They're just listening to it out on their property, and they're like, "What do we do?" I said, "Well, just enjoy it." They're not attacking you. They're finding structures and stuff like that, but they seem to be chattering a lot. They talk a lot for this one family, you know, and they are ultra devout. They're the kind of family that they have a family Facebook page. Nobody has their own. It's a family Facebook page. Yeah, and that's, you know, the family that does everything together, you know. And so, you know, there's I know a few people like that. You know, the husband and wife share their, but this is, they do everything together as a family. They believe together. They don't believe together. They grieve. They rejoice. They pray. They do all their stuff is based around, you know, Jesus Christ and the church and Christianity. But they're hearing these beings that don't exist, and they aren't the Nephilim because they don't even believe that. You know, I don't know who or what they are, but they're here, and God put them on this earth, so we can't deny they exist. You know, whatever it takes for you to believe and, you know, look into it, go for it. But that, you know, I get those all the time. It's so there's something going on, you know, and nobody wants to talk about it. Well, I do, and we do, all four of us here, you know. But, you know, it's a what's it, the dark family secret nobody talks about, you know, the crazy uncle nobody talks about. You know? Well, this is the crazy, you know, 9-foot tall Sasquatch that, you know, tore a hog in half while I was standing there, you know, mowing the grass. You know, they throw rocks at him while they're mowing the grass. It's fun, you know, and then they throw back. You know, he's got a very meticulous yard, and he hates having the rocks there. So he says, "You're going to throw rocks, put them in the flower bed." So they start stacking them on the porch. So I'm not going to do what I'm told, human. You can't tell me what to do. So I'm going to stack them. But they just mess with each other. There's all kinds of like little relationship quirks that are going on, you know, and they let them take their food that they're growing because they don't hardly eat anymore. All the kids are gone. So they, you know, they still have a vegetable garden, but they let them take what they want. There's plenty for them. So, and they take the food. They leave it in a pile and it's gone the next morning and it's gone. So, and I said, just don't feed them that roasted chicken. They'll bug you to death. They'll come in and crawl in bed with you until you feed them. So don't give them any of the really good, greasy human food, you know.
No, I'm not doing any of that.
Leaving out Walmart rotisserie chickens.
I do, because I'm only 5'6". I'll be a damn snack for them. You know what I mean? I don't want to. And you know, if they crawl in bed with me, it's going to be big spoon, little spoon. You know whose ass is little spoon. So.
Well, you know, everybody says Costco chicken is the worst. I'm not sure if that's the truth. I don't know Costco or Walmart, so I don't know which one's the truth. But the stories continue, and it's just, you know, I'm so very lucky that these people, they trust me, they call and will share stuff or ask questions, or, you know, and it's just, what do we do if, and, you know, but I've got 12 families that are living with them on their properties and reporting to me at various intervals what's going on. Some quite often, some have become very good friends. I've been to some of these properties 3 or 4 times, you know. One thing I wanted to go over, that hand photo on the trail cam.
All right, I'll bring that one up.
Okay. Okay. Well, that one, I think I took the trail camera data off of that one. If you, down at the bottom, there should be a track. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Now, what time is that?
15:12, 3:12 in the afternoon.
3:12 and 40 seconds. Now, show the guy walking toward the camera.
Okay. Give me just a second.
This will blow you away. Blew me away anyway. Okay, what time is it on that one?
What's that? This was what, 4 seconds before that?
Yeah. Same camera, same location. Now notice.
You sure it wasn't his hand?
Huh?
You sure it wasn't his hand?
No, not
Because if he's there and then 4 seconds later there's a hand in the camera?
Yeah. This is the town preacher. The last guy to fake anything. Check this out. Now look at the shadow behind him. See that dark area in the foreground? It's kind of a nice dark shadow. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see the horizontal tree that's fallen in the background?
Mm-hmm.
And you see all the trees all standing up all nice and straight. Now pull the other camera shot up.
Okay, let me have to switch back. Hold on.
It's okay. Alrighty. See that dark area on the bottom there? Well, it's not as dark. It's because the camera moved and the Sasquatch is blocking some of the light and affecting the shade. Look at the trees in the background. You see how they're all heading to the right? Sasquatch bumped the camera. It turned the camera, changed the shading because of the exposure to the light and the shadows. You see the horizontal tree that's still in the background. He bumped that camera. He showed up 4 seconds after. Pure and simple. That's the town preacher.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Oh,
I'm sure this wasn't taken like 4 seconds later when he was checking the batteries and bumped the camera?
Well, no, because he never saw it. He never saw, sensed it, smelled it, heard it, nothing. And that's not his. That's not his. That's.
These shots are taken 4 seconds apart.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if something was that close to me, I'm gonna see it.
Unless it materialized. You gotta hold that thought for a second. It could have just showed right up. This is the town preacher. I have asked him. I have Google lensed it. I've tried to find any photo like that anywhere. I couldn't find one. I asked him, I said, "Man, is this real? Or is this a hoax? Is this real?" He said, "Carter, it's real. And don't you ever ask me that again." I said, "I have to ask all my witnesses when they present me with something confounding like this. I ask everybody. Because I have to. Because if I'm going to put my name on it and put it in a book, I got to know what I'm dealing with." Now the upturned fingernails were kind of weird, but then I've never seen. Maybe it was a juvenile, maybe it was a deformity. We went down there to film, and that didn't ever work out due to infighting with the production people. Not me, but it was they were infighting. But what do you do when you see that? It's 4 seconds. I've done that.
There's your upturned fingernail.
There's one there. Yeah, it's just what do you know? And they've had other stuff going on there. They've got 32 cameras in this one area that's probably about an acre. It's where these 2 creeks that used to be really big creeks used to join and flow into a smaller river area. And it used to be really marshy and wet, but it's not anymore. So they have 3 cameras, all triangulated. So they have one camera facing another camera, and then that camera is facing the third camera. So they're all triangulated, so they don't miss anything if it walks in between them. So they got about 10 areas with 3 cameras. So it's about 32 cameras out there. So every 6-8 weeks, they go out, change batteries, check the SD cards, just make sure they're all working fine and they're still up and all that. And that's what he was doing that day, was going out and checking, make sure they were all still attached to the trees and not stolen anything or stuff like that. Well, that was his gig. Usually the owner goes with him, but he couldn't do it that day, so he was just out there. And what do you do, with that? I asked him, I looked, hands are kind of the same size, but I can't tell, from, he would have had to buy a glove and put what I mean? But then again, he's the town preacher, and I'm thinking, well, a couple other podcasts, I say something, I said, well, preachers lie. Just because they're a preacher doesn't mean they don't lie, tell lies. Look at, what's his name? The guy in Texas. Who's the guy with 300 million?
Austin.
Huh?
Austin.
Yeah. Joel Osteen, whatever. Yeah. Now, somebody like that I would expect to be, full of hooey. But, they don't want their name used. They don't want their location. They're just telling me, again, they have nothing to gain unless they just want to enjoy snickering because they fooled this old fart from, the big city, but they don't want anything for it, and they've got other things going on out there. A film crew came out to film, Stacy Brown turned me on their crew, and they came out, and that's where we were going to film something. And they were out there looking for something called the Rougarou or the Gaurau, which was supposed to be a mythical animal that lived in the swamps in this particular state.
It's out in Louisiana. The Rougarou is believed to be a curse. It's very similar to the werewolf legend, but it's usually passed on by hoodoo or voodoo.
Yeah. Well, that's what I told them. I said, you sure you're not talking about the Rougarou? And they said, no, this is called the Gaurau. And there is a creature. It's kind of got a turtle shell, and it's kind of got the tail with a big spiked ball on the end, and it can stand upright, and it can swim and go underwater. And it's called the Gaurau, Gowrow or something. So they were there to film that because there were some people that had seen one or claimed to have seen one, and so they came by to film because we had that handprint that got them out there. And here's the thing, and I don't know what they did, but I said, I'm going to send you this handprint. You tell me, get your camera people to look at this. You tell me if it's fake or not. And they called me back, said, we're coming out. That's a good print. I said, okay, that's all I need. So I left it in their hands. What do you do with it? You know, I don't know if it's. I sure hate to think, but you know, you would have had to put a glove on and change the look, and it's just. I don't know.
I'll be right back.
Anybody that's better with cameras, let me know. Or digging out the phony stuff. But they've had a lot of activity out there, and they have 2 properties. So
I was going to ask you something else that completely slipped my mind. Have you had any violent encounters?
no, I've been paralleled, close, too close, but no. And that's the one thing I have never, nor have any of my habituation people reported any violence or any even aggressive behavior. You know, now my lady in Washington, she's had angry Sasquatches wanting more pie. They were having a Christmas party and they had baked a bunch of pies and they were trying to cool them off, so they put them out on the deck to cool off a little bit. They just pulled them out of the ovens, a bunch of pies. They came back out to get them when the company got there, and 2 of them were gone. You know, and so and they started beating on the house because they wanted more. They came back for more pie. And so that's the only, but I have never been chased out of the woods. I've been, you know, spooked a couple of times, like I'm going, you know, here's the thing. We're in the woods. We don't know what's out there. I mean, we think we're tracking a Sasquatch or a Dogman, but we don't really know what the shadow. I've seen a lot. We've all seen like silhouettes and shadows at night, you know, running through the woods, or you know, backlit by the moon in the, you know, in the woods, and you can see, well, there's a humanoid something. I don't know what it is, but it's bigger than me, and I want to keep the distance just like it is, just in case. I've never had one of those. I hope I don't, but I haven't. You know.
I'm just curious. Yeah, I've had a number of violent encounters.
Yeah. I mean, they were like wanting to hurt you or just get you out of there.
Well, I'm fairly certain that a couple of times their intention was to get us.
Yeah. But,
you know,
yeah, but all my, you know, the habituation folks and even the witnesses, you know, the one with my guy up in the New England area that had the 6 hours of missing time, that one did chase him and his dog. The $5,000 police-trained German Shepherd that wouldn't do a thing when it got under pressure. You know, he was really more upset about spending $5,000 on this police-trained German Shepherd. It was just like it just froze.
I've seen incidents of tracking dogs that refused to track.
Yeah, and it could have been snapped off, where you just froze and sat there. Now, when he ran into the travel trailer and barricaded himself in, and he went, "Oh crap! I don't have my gun. I left my gun at the other house," because he was heading on to his house that he lived in. So he and the dog ran into the travel trailer, about 30-foot travel trailer he has, and so he saw the Sasquatch about 10 o'clock one night. He was sending the crew home. They've been working late with the lights and everything, sending everybody home, getting everything put away. And he sees the Sasquatch walking at him, just walking from about 50 yards away, just walking, but it's at a steady pace. It's almost robotic. It's walking right at him. And the dog is sitting there going, he gives him his, commands in German, because he's got, keywords in German that he speaks, so nobody else can chat with him. And it just sat there. It did nothing. He said, yeah, I think we better get out of here. So they turn around and haul ass to the travel trailer, and it's still following them, but it's not chasing. It's just still walking the same pace. They knew where it was going. They got in there, locked the door. It was walking around the travel trailer. They could see it outside through the windows. It was walking and looking. It was banging on the sides. And he goes, oh, God, I don't have my gun. So he got in the kitchen and found a butcher knife is all he could find. And him and the dog went and barricaded himself in the bathroom. You know how big a bathroom is on a travel trailer? About what, 3 foot by 3, maybe 4 by 4?
Yeah, a little closet.
Yeah, closet with a toilet. You know, and so they locked themselves in there, and the dog and him were sitting together, and the dog was leaning against him, and he was holding the knife like this, pointed at the door. He was just waiting for this Sasquatch to come busting through there. And that was about 11:30 at night. Next thing he does, he wakes up. It's 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And all the guys are getting there to go to work for the next morning. And that's what wakes him up is all the noise. And his wife is pulling up in her car to cook breakfast, because that's what she did, was cook breakfast for the crew. And then she'd go back home because they just had a baby. So 7 hours later, he wakes up. The dog is still leaning against him. He's out, but dogs don't sleep sitting up. And he is like in a trance. He's just out. He's not doing anything. And so suddenly they shake it off and they're waking up, and he walks out and sees all the guys getting there, and he's fresh, refreshed. He's not like stiff from sitting like this for 6-7 hours. He's like, it just happened. But 6-7 hours went by. And so there's some missing time. And there's, go ahead.
No, I was just going to, if you were done, I was going to answer a question somebody had posted.
Oh, go ahead.
Isabel asked, she says, here's my question. Are there accounts of them physically harming women, or is it only men? A lot of Native American lore on them carrying off women and children. And if you believe in some of the missing 411, it's not just men that go missing. So, I would say they're probably more inclined to carry off women and probably more inclined to attack men. But that's just a guess based on, Native American accounts and readily available data.
Yeah. Possible birthing pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that's something that is, when that happened 200 years ago, there's no hoaxing. I saw that. I saw them carry off my squaw, my woman, and she's gone. And this being took her.
Well, they had that incident in Russia too, didn't they, DA?
Zana, where they captured the wild woman.
Yeah,
and she actually had a few children with local villagers.
Yeah, and she was speechless, wasn't she? Did she not?
Yeah, she didn't speak any language that anybody knew.
Yeah. So, but then, what do you do with that when there's no hoaxing? These women are telling what they saw. It's not like, well, my grandfather told my uncle, who told my sister, who told me. I saw this, And so, what do you do when there was no hoaxing and faking? This is like, I saw it, whatever it is. The world's a strange place. I can't tell you why I saw it or how it happened. I just saw this weird thing happen. So what do you do with that? And then they're impregnating the women and having their babies.
Yeah, there are stories out of the Pacific Northwest of women that were abducted, then wandered back into camp months later pregnant.
Yeah.
A lot of times the babies didn't survive, but in the few cases that they did, they were born deformed and hairy.
Yeah. So what do you see? We're all telling these same stories. We're hearing the same stories from witnesses and experiencers, and it's smoke and fire. There's something going on. It's not like a bunch of crazy people. Oh, they got their hands on the good stuff. We got gummies there in the town of East Rutherford, so they're all high, and they think they see Sasquatches coming out of the trees. This ain't hallucination. This is real stuff that's going on, and they just are looking at us. The government, schools, church, science,
I'm expecting a larger number of sightings over the next few weeks here in Missouri because it's morel mushroom season.
Baby.
And I know I've gotten a lot of reports around morel mushroom season.
Well, and we talked about the stuff on the other show we did about the fires pushing them out too. Probably gonna be a lot more sightings in those areas around where Robbie lives.
Nope. I got my ear to the ground. Johnny's going up to our spot up on Highway 11 Sunday, matter of fact.
One doctor was mentioning the Albert Osman story where he got carried off in a sleeping bag, ostensibly to be a husband for the teenage daughter.
Mm-hmm. Thank God for chewing tobacco.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for that, he probably would have still been up there.
Yeah, you never know the story.
But he never changed his story till the day he died. I mean, he lived into his 90s, and he's still sworting down that happened.
He signed an affidavit, didn't it? Who was one of the early researchers that got him to sign? Was it?
I think Bindernagel did.
Who?
I think it was Bindernagel.
Yeah, I thought it was Wilhelm, but yeah.
Maybe, but I thought it was Bindernagel, but I could be wrong.
It could be right. Yeah, I don't know. I just know that, of course, anybody can swear to anything. But
yeah,
again,
that's true.
That's 1920s, and hoaxing wasn't a thing. What's he going to gain by that?
Hey Carter, have you ever heard the Dogman howl that was recorded just a few miles from Robbie's house? Here, I'll play it real quick and see what you think.
Here we go.
Do that again.
Here we go.
That's kind of like a higher pitched roar almost.
Yeah, it was recorded on a Ring doorbell camera just about 5 miles from where Robbie's at.
Sound like a lion almost. Rawr.
That's a powerful roar. And it freaks people. Whenever we play it on the show, people are always posting in chat that it freaks their animals out. Cats and dogs will both react to it.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. No, I you think back on all the places I've been, you've been, everybody's been. Maybe you saw one of these and you thought it was a Sasquatch. You just seen a silhouette backlit by the moon, or
what I saw on LBL was a Dogman. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was a Dogman.
I would love to have the opportunity, man. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of dying or any of that kind of stuff. I think they're as spooked about us as we are about them. But, if they were out to kill us, we'd all be dead. I mean, if that's what they were going to do, they could have killed my kid in the greenhouse.
I think it depends on the circumstances. I mean, I've had, I've had a face-to-face encounter with a grizzly bear. I mean, close enough I could reach up and pet it. And it went one way and I went the other. But if it had been under different circumstances, like getting ready to go into hibernation or just coming out of hibernation, I'd have been eaten. Yeah. But it was just one of those, oh crap, it wasn't hungry and it wasn't looking for food at that particular moment, and we went our separate ways. But it could have been very different under just slightly different circumstances.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the seasons, the breeding patterns, the migratory patterns, things like that, all count towards their level of aggressiveness, to be honest with you.
And I've noticed that we get less violent encounters in the spring than we do in the fall. We get far more violent encounters in the fall than we get in the spring, at least in this area.
Is that mating season or hibernation?
I don't know what that corresponds to, but when the leaves start dropping and the weather starts turning cool, they get violent.
Yeah, I would still love to have the experience. I really need to get to LBL. I've never been.
I recommend it, but I don't recommend going alone.
Oh no, I wouldn't go alone. I'll bring my kitty cat.
When we went to LBL, I was in northern LBL for almost a week. And in that time, when we stayed across the river across the canal in Grand Rivers, and where we stayed in Grand Rivers, there were deer and possum and everything else that were just wandering around the campsites. We were seeing them constantly. But as soon as you cross that bridge into northern LBL, Nothing. In an entire week, I didn't see one animal or see even a single piece of roadkill. Nothing. I've never had that happen anywhere else.
Yeah, I'd have to get my butt over there, before I'm too old to do it. Because I want to experience that. With the adrenaline, the fear, the incredible rush of seeing a being like that. I mean, it's just fascinating. When I saw that one disappear, it just like lit a fire. It still burned. So this Dogman thing, when he was telling me, it's and they're getting seen down in this particular area often, in the caves and the hog farm and the silver mine.
If there's shelter, water, and food source, they're going to be in that area.
Yeah.
Just like any other big predator, that's what's going to attract them to an area. Ample food supply, shelter, and water.
Yeah. So it's just a fascinating thing, and like I said, I took a couple of BFRO reports about 3 or 4 years ago, and a guy saw a Sasquatch late night at this place called, you may be familiar with it, Amarugia Conservation Area.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. There's it is south of Kansas City by 75, 100 miles maybe.
I think I know exactly where you're talking about.
Amarugia Conservation Area, and there's a Native American presence down there.
That's not far from Four Rivers.
No, and there's a band that was called the Amarugia Ridge Runners, some kind of country band or something, and so that's where I heard the name first, and then I realized this kid and his girlfriend had gone out one night and were just looking at the moon and stuff, and they saw a Sasquatch and they freaked out under the full moon. They were running back, and when they were running back, they saw a Dogman. He said, that Brendan Fraser movie, it looked just like that, with the back of legs. He was talking about the mummy, the pharaoh or whatever, Anubis.
Yeah, the Anubis, the Anubis giant.
Yeah, so he described it. So, what's going on out here? I said, well, I don't know. And the funny part of that story was that the girlfriend really freaked, and she ran ahead with him and got out of there quick, and she had the key to the car. She wouldn't let him in. He was never go somebody that runs faster than you or has the key. Yeah, she had the key, and she wasn't being mean. She was just so scared she couldn't. Oh, no, it'll get me. It was the funny part of the story. So in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been introduced, at arm's length with a Dogman report. And my kid that I know him, he's sitting there staring at it.
Well, those Dogman accounts you talk about are kind of the anomaly, because 95% of Dogman encounter stories are violent.
Yeah. Well, it was broad daylight. The family's out there, working around in different areas. They got 5 or 6 of these big Quonset hut things that they, they've got all their food growing and everything. And so could have been, it was just a youngin' and curious and didn't have, larceny or murder on its mind at the time. I mean, he was just curious about him, looking at him through this plastic. What is this weird stuff? I could poke at it with my claws. And, what is this? It was just it was such an innocent thing that he was describing to me. This being was looking and tilting his head and doing this, and and it was crouched down, then it stood up, and he went from 6 feet to 8 feet. He's going, okay, well, now I'm kind of worried because there's a sheet of plastic between me and this guy, and he's a lot bigger. So, but I mean, they live like that. They are interacting with the Sasquatch. They don't have any trouble with them. They see them and interact with them. They got names for them, and so it's just the habituation thing has just got me addicted. I mean, I want more, but I've got that down, and I've got the people reporting, and some other people want to call. I may or may not write another book, but I really don't want to write another book. I want to watch TV. I don't want to write another book. Stop it. But it was it's just it's been a trip and a joy, and I hear from somebody every month at least. I hear from somebody with something, and I got them. They just sent me a picture of these 3 stacks of rocks on his toolbox that's outside of his house. This is the father that sent me that. I'm going, God, thanks for that. That's really cool. So I mean, just thought you'd like to see it. Thanks. I mean, do people just call you and send you stuff out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's cool.
We encourage that. We put up the email for the show and everything. We tell people all the time, if you've got an encounter you'd like to hear or like us to hear about, we'd love to check it out and send it to us at daroberts@daroberts.net.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't do a show. I just do shows like yours, so I don't have that calling card where I'm going, hey, send me. But I've got enough people, and they've told some friends, and so I've got the little private club of people calling with their sightings and ideas and theories and what was that my people I spent the most time with, they've seen giant football field long cylindrical UFO just floating about 50 feet over their property, just floating by, huge, and then they'll see a Sasquatch that night or the next day. They'll see, there's something going on. There's something in the orbs. They got orbs running through the house all over the place, and they're very religious, very, very deeply devout. I'm not sure, maybe it's the Bible Belt down in South Missouri. I've got a lot of folks that are really devout and they believe this. And nobody, I think one family brought up the Nephilim thing. And other than that, they just think that they are what they are, and they're very privileged to see them and interacting with them to whatever degree they are, whatever they're comfortable with. And I keep getting them. It's just bizarre,
Yeah.
I really need to. I'd like to show you that place in Ellington off the 116 highway. It's 120 or 116. I can't remember.
I'm not sure either. Not off the top of my head.
It's the last place you can turn in and go left if you're going south away from Ellington. Instead of turning left, you go right, and you'll see a road that's not really well kept. It's got some ruts and stuff in it. It's not maintained like they normally do the other one. If you go back there, it's 2.7 miles. You go back, and there is a teepee, a big teepee structure. It's about 12, 15 feet tall, maybe a little taller. It's been there a long time. I've been there several times, and it's still there. It's pretty cool. So you might find it on your own if you're ever down there. But I am swearing that I'm going to get out and get off my butt and get out of this office and go. Because I've been trapped here. If
you've got like a map pen of it, send me the coordinates, and I would definitely go check it out.
I'll send you a copy of the map. I've got the map.
Okay, sounds good. I would definitely go check it out.
Yeah, but it's and Peck's Ranch was another really interesting spot down there. When they were releasing the elk back into the wild. They built those like 12-foot fences over there, and they were trying to keep something out, not keep the elk in. So I was told. Don't know. Very, 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 very could have been just trying to keep big cats out, which they denied forever. Well, just the last 10 years, they suddenly deny that. We don't have any.
They've been catching mountain lions on Ring doorbell cameras here in Springfield.
Yeah, it's like, what do you think? What do you mean?
Tough to deny that.
Yeah, but mountain lions don't exist in your area, DA. Didn't they tell you that?
Oh yeah, they've been telling us that for years. And also, like they said, there's no wolves in Missouri, and we know that's false.
Yeah. And there's no flying saucers. There's no Sasquatch. There's no nothing. What are we doing here? We're just breeding and eating. There's nothing else going on here. But that's my story in a nutshell. I mean, I've got thousands of stories, probably half as many as you got, probably not even a tenth of what you got. But it's
sounds like you've got a whole lifetime of stories, though. I mean, If
Yeah.
you've been researching 20 plus years, you're definitely going to have some stories.
Yeah. So, and so it's, and I am planning to go down to Ellington, so maybe we can coordinate something. Are you like totally retired? Are you doing anything at all?
Yeah, I'm retired. I write full time mostly.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing, or, doing shows and stuff. So
If y'all keep hearing a snoring sound, it's Harley. He's right over here behind my chair. Sound
little Patty. I just responded, little Patty. It's like that's Harley snoring at the AC.
Yeah, he's we are just completely racked out.
we have a cat
snoring.
Yeah.
Well, at the other house, I had an actual office where I could go in and shut the door, and I would leave him in the living room with the wife. But over here at this house, it's much smaller, and I don't have an office, so he got as close to the green screen as he could possibly get, and he's just absolutely racked out and sawing logs.
He's been sawing them off, man. He has been sawing them off for a minute.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys could hear that, because I could definitely hear it.
And little Patty was like, "What is that snoring sound?"
He's laid out like Homer Simpson, just.
He's happy at home. He's happy and comfy with dad. Mom.
Bless it.
Well, we're going to start winding things down. It's coming up on the 10 o'clock hour. Carter, you want to tell us again where we can find your books? I'll post your links in the chat again.
Okay. You can go to my website, which is sqexplorer.com, or you can email me at sqexplorer@gmail.com. And I'm self-published, so my books are all full color, and they're nicely done, nice paper. That's not it's good paper. It's glossy paper for the color photos and everything. There's really good stuff, good pictures and good data. There's no fiction in here. It's all firsthand stories, believe them or not, and I've vetted all of these people. I would hate to be disappointed thinking they were yanking my tape. The handprint, the hand photo, it just doesn't match the personality of the guy. I toyed with that for so long, and I got a lot of crap when I put it out, but it's what it is, And but these people are just so sincere and truthful. I know you run into the same kind of people. All you guys do. You probably run, and they're just sincere and truthful, and they just want to help. They want to know what's going on. What have I seen? What am I dealing with? Is it going to hurt me? Is it going to eat my babies? Or anything like that. So they're really appreciative of us getting out there, and sharing what knowledge we have, and what theories, and you take it really good, of course. But they're all so grateful, and I wish all the humans were like that. They're just so thankful and happy to be able to tell their story and not be laughed at and mocked, especially by the ones closest to you, your spouse and your coworkers, are the ones that are going to give you the hardest time because they can. You can't leave. Well, I guess you could. So, but it's a very fulfilling type of research, So, I might try to see if we can clear some space in about a month or 6 weeks. If I don't know what you're doing, but I need to get down there.
Definitely.
You'd like that area. It's pretty cool. I'll send you the current river conservation. I'll send you the map. You'll know when you see it. You go,
oh, I've been down in that area quite a bit.
Yeah, you'll probably say, I passed that road 1,000 times.
Probably will, because I've camped and fished down there a lot.
Yeah, because I think if you take that road and you keep on going back, then you're going to go down the road that kind of goes along with the river there, and then you end up going down toward Pax Ranch and going back up north a little bit. And I can't remember what the Pax Ranch conservation area is called. It's called something else, that little area. But anyway, that's where you can get my books. If you can email me if you got questions, you got a report. I'm confidential. I'm not going to tell anybody who you are, where you're living. That's the worst thing in the world is to have some strangers driving by looking to shoot a Sasquatch and get $1 million.
Amen.
And there's still people that have that mindset. So you just,
I have no desire to shoot one. The only way I will is in self-defense or defending somebody else.
Yeah, no, I don't need that. I just, I need the, I've not seen one broad daylight, but it's coming. I don't even need to if it doesn't happen. It doesn't matter because I'm fully invested because they're there and we know they're there, and we just got to convince the government to quit jacking with us.
Exactly.
But I've enjoyed this. Has been awesome, guys.
I've had a good time. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you for spending the evening with us.
Yeah, well, do that or sleep.
I hear you.
I'd rather do this. My wife snores, so I'd rather be here anyway. But if you want to do it again, let's do it.
Will do. We'll give you a holler.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Be safe.
Good to meet everybody.
Well, folks, we're going to start winding things down, and at the end of the show, I want to talk about something that we always talk about. We talk about the 22 a day foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. And this is something that's very near and dear to me because I've had too many friends buried under that folded flag. So check on your friends and family that are first responders. Check on your people that are worn a uniform, veteran, active duty, anybody that's put their life in jeopardy for us is worthy of our respect and needs to be checked on, because you never know when that, hey, are you okay text is the one thing that keeps them off the edge. And we lose 22 a day, and that is, again, 22 too many. So reach out to the folks, even the ones you think that don't need it, because you never know. Sometimes it's the ones you don't think need it are the ones that need it the most. So reach out to the folks that are that you care about. Let them know you care, and let them know they are not alone, because at least 22 times a day the hard days do win, and let's change that. So again, folks, appreciate you guys being here. Carter, thank you for being here, and we're going to close things out with a toast. How we've been kind of toasting things at the end of the show. And what's up, Doc?
Hey, when we end this toast, let's also add up, send up a prayer for my family, my mom's family. She's been gone almost 20 years, but her oldest sister just passed. My Aunt B just passed this evening around 7 Central Standard Time. And so if y'all would just say a prayer for the Sylvester family and down in Picayune, Mississippi.
And also, folks, say keep everybody that's in the path of these storms in your prayers, because they're heading east. They hit us earlier today. Thankfully, we didn't get any real damage, but there's some folks in the chat tonight that are in the paths of these storms, and keep them in your prayers. And Robbie was saying earlier that the wildfires near him are about 75% contained. So if we can get a little rain in their direction, we might be able to get that completely put out, and that would be a blessing for all the folks that live in that area.
And Val Kilmer, rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace, Val. Yeah. We lost a good one there. Yeah, and I'm gonna remove my hat. And the toast we use is from an old Irish drinking song called "The Parting Glass." And if you listen to the words, it's not just talking about saying goodbye to somebody at the end of the night. If you listen to the words, it's more talking about raising a glass for those that aren't with us anymore. So the chorus from the song says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone, and thank you for being with us.
Good night.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAX Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Hey, send me a link when you can.